Are you struggling in your current relationship, desiring the relationship to improve, to be amazing? Are you looking for that perfect relationship now and are unable to seem to find it, to have that? Today, we're going to embark on day one of transforming your life in 7 days in this area specifically around relationships. Welcome to Transform Evolve, where I am excited to embark on this journey with you to transform your life in just 7 days. So let's break down relationships. Let's talk a little bit about what this means. Obviously, there is the element of romantic relationships with your significant other. Now, oftentimes we can look at relationships as a mirror image of ourselves. Carl Jung talks about the shadow and how we oftentimes get involved romantically with our shadow, which means that there's parts of us that need healing, that need to be resolved, and it is our romantic partner that brings that out in us. So, we're going to do a 7 day process. And I want to, first of all, ask you to please ensure that you are in a safe, calm, quiet environment, even for this video. So, if you're multitasking, if you're driving, just know that that is not the intended purpose for this. We're going to go through some processes, even in this very first video, where you need to be focused. You need to have your full attention on what we're talking about. And there are going to be some practices, some scripts that we will go through to help you elicit the deeper situations that might be involved, to allow those to come to the surface, to come to your awareness, so that we can heal them, we can release them. I want to talk a little bit about permission. So, as we go through this process, by your watching this video, I will presuppose that you're giving me permission to work with you, to guide you as best I can through this platform to solve these situations that are holding you back in this particular area of your life. Now, we will use, as I mentioned earlier, some unconscious practices to allow the information to come from the unconscious mind into the conscious mind. I think this is a really good time to give a quick recap on what is the unconscious mind and what is the conscious mind. Every human being has this element of a unconscious mind and a conscious mind. Now, science is proving more and more the science behind how these two brains, if you will, operate. We only have one brain. Sometimes it's easier to kind of think about the brain as two different parts, right? For the ability to discuss, to understand the concepts and the theories. So the unconscious mind is just that. It's unconscious. It is a part of your brain that you really are unaware of. There are things that we can do to help bring information from the unconscious mind forward into the conscious mind. The numbers that we're seeing today are the conscious mind computes roughly 5%, give or take, depending on the person, of course. 3% in some, up to 7% in others, right? So it's a very small portion of the computing power of your total brain. The unconscious mind takes up the rest, right? So that's going to be 93 to 97% of the computing power. Now, there's a reason for this. The amount of data that we are subjected to on a day-to-day basis is a lot, right? It's a huge number. They're calculating right now that it could be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million bits of data per second. That's coming to us through our five senses, right? Seeing, feeling, hearing, touching. And so all of that information is just getting downloaded directly to the unconscious mind. Now, that's why your unconscious mind is able to handle that because of its large amount of computing power. Now, there's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system. This is a very small part of the brain that is kind of like the buffer the traffic control, so to speak, of what data passes from the unconscious mind into the conscious mind. This is where the beauty comes in the process that we're going to undertake here in the next 7 days, and the processes that we have to bring information forward. So I want to kind of break this down. The unconscious mind is really good at storing data, and some of that data is programs. Let's talk a little bit about what programs are. Everyone is familiar with apps on your phone. You simply have a desire, you open your phone, you tap an app icon, and what happens? The app pops up and you start performing whatever functions that app is able to do for you. And typically that will satisfy your desire for whatever it was you needed to do with that app. It's the same way for our unconscious mind. There are programs in our unconscious mind that we stored there based off of our learning from when we were newly born all the way up to 7 years of age, and we still develop some strategies, patterns, habits after that age, but the bulk of what's in our unconscious mind as far as programs, habits, and strategies were developed at that young age from 0 to 7. So what we're looking at is just like with the app, when a event occurs, that's the trigger. Just like when you take your phone and you tap the app icon, same thing with our lives. When something happens, we pull a program up, and then that program runs. Now, the difference between your phone is you have a disconnect between the screen and your conscious brain. Now, in the unconscious mind, when a program gets triggered and operates, we don't really notice it. You know, some people like to use the word we're asleep or we're just unaware. So that's how we'll continue these conversations, is that we are unaware of what type of programs we have possibly operating in our unconscious mind. So those of you watching are like, great, I understand this. Now, how do I figure out what's in my unconscious mind? Be patient. We will get there. There is a process to what we are trying to accomplish here. So in the area of relationships, I feel like most people struggle with love or with loving themselves. People can have a feeling of unworthiness. There could be guilt and shame that's down inside. So what we're going to do is start a process of understanding what we have inside of us. Now, there's a simple process that is referred to as automatic writing. I will encourage you guys outside of this video to practice automatic writing, especially between videos 1 and 2 of this webinar. This will help you discover more of what's inside. Let's take a minute and discuss what automatic writing really is. So when we write, we are typically conscious. We are thinking a thought, a phrase, the words, and we're writing it out in our dominant hand. What is really cool about automatic writing is you're still writing with your dominant hand, but you're allowing your brain to just kind of shut off. And you're writing without thinking. And the play here, the trick here, is to not judge what's written. Just let it write out. I've practiced this a lot in my experience, and it is interesting what comes out. Oftentimes, I will start with a conscious question, like, how do you get started with automatic writing? So you sit down with a blank piece of paper and a pen in your dominant hand, and I will simply just ask a question to myself on the paper. I'll write out whatever that question is with a question mark, and then I'll just kind of sit there and I'll look at it and I'll allow myself to just kind of get into a trance-like state. And as I do that, I'll have some thoughts start to pop in my head. So as those thoughts pop in my head, I just start writing the thoughts out. Without judgment, without consideration, I just write. So I would encourage you guys to practice this at least during this first day. So let's kind of set some ground rules or guidance to follow. Plan on at least 1 hour a day for the next 7 days. And we're going to put these videos out in succession so that you can watch each one each day. If you're skipping ahead, I would strongly discourage that because there will be a flow and a process to each of these videos. So day one, we're basically discovering, we're learning, what is it about relationships? What is my part in these relationships? We're going to discover what is considered the root problem for you in this area, with which when we remove the root problem, all the other problems will disappear, okay? And so as part of discovering the root problem, you need to do a little bit of writing. There will be some homework assignments at the end of each of these videos. So please dedicate the time to yourself. You know, people are always like, oh, I don't have time. I'm too busy. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. Well, you're here watching this first video because you decided that there was something you wanted to change in your life. And if I told you that just by simply following everything I'm showing you here today and in the next subsequent 6 videos, you could make that change in your life, is it worth the 7 hours, maybe 10 hours max of your time to get that change realized in your life? I would think so. Now, I've practiced everything I'm going to be showing you, and it is wonderfully powerful. But you must understand that this is a do-with process. So you have to show up. You have to play at 100%. And I'm going to remind you guys in each video that you are coming presupposing with a belief that this is going to work, that you're going to give yourself 100% effort because this is for you. It's not for me or anyone else. This is for you to change, to transform, and to evolve this particular area of your life. So let's talk about getting into a trance-like state. When we do automatic writing, it is most effective if you allow yourself to just kind of get into a trance-like state. So I want for you guys to just take a moment and relax. Put your feet firmly on the floor. Make sure you're seated. Hands just lightly placed on your knees. And I want you to take a big sigh. Do it with me now. Feel that as you vibrate in your esophagus region. Feel that energy just kind of uncoiling and releasing. Let's do it again. In through the nose. Okay. Now you can pause this video and do that several more times if you're enjoying that feeling. I'm already feeling pretty relaxed. That is an interesting concept with our neurology, that when we do something enough, we can trigger the effect so much faster. So I feel very, very good, very calm. Now we'll practice grounding in the subsequent videos, but I want to go through trance state. How does it feel? Every person cycles through alpha and beta brainwave states every 90 minutes. And we don't really realize this, but we do it. People will sometimes say, oh, I just zoned out. Well, guess what? Your brain is naturally wired to cycle between alpha and beta. Now, beta is generally your most alert, awake state. Alpha is a more calm, relaxed, awake state. And theta is where your brain waves get into what we call trance. Now, when you're sitting at night watching the TV and you start to zone out and you just kind of feel like, I don't know, loopy or just kind of like, you're entering into a light trance state. When you lay your head down on the pillow to go to sleep, you will naturally move down through the brainwave states into delta. So you'll be in some form of beta, and then you will drop into alpha, and then you hit theta for just a little bit, minute to 2 minutes, something like that, depends on the person, and then you drop into delta. So if you're curious, just kind of experiment. Allow yourself to relax and kind of zone out and take a mental picture of how that feels. and try to understand a little better of when you are already naturally entering into a trance-like state. Now, I practice Hawaiian spirituality, so we're going to have some elements of that. We'll also have some elements of neurolinguistic programming, all intertwined to provide the most amazing results for you all watching this webinar. I want to discuss in ancient Hawaiian spirituality, there's something called hakalau. Now, in a layman's term, hakalau is just allowing your vision to expand. So I want to do a little experiment. Put down whatever is in your hands, please, and just kind of, again, sit and relax, straight posture, and find a spot out in front of you, slightly elevated, on the wall, 8-10 feet away, and focus your vision on that spot. And now take your hands up like you're a referee, field goal position, and move your hands forward and kind of wiggle your fingers, move your hands back, and experiment where you can see those hands, right? When they just disappear out of your peripheral vision. All the while, keep staring at a spot on the wall. And just notice how your eyes relax as you expand or widen your vision. This is getting into hakalau. So I'll use this term intermittently with just getting into a trance-like state. Paint a mental picture of what this feels like. See how you're more relaxed. And as you practice this more, it'll become very easy for you to just drift right into this trance-like state. So my advice, as you may be possibly just getting into this type of situation or learning how to do this, is before you do your automatic writing, do this exercise. Practice getting into the hakalau state and allow yourself to remain in that calm, centered, grounded condition in a light trance-like state as you're writing. Now that we've covered kind of some basics on the automatic writing, let's dive into relationships. We talked a little bit about our programming, right? And if our unconscious mind is filled with experiential data, we have to start asking ourselves, where did that data come from? What is it showing us? How is it making us behave? When we were a child, what did we see? Did we have our own mother and father in the same house? Perhaps we were raised in a single family because our parents separated or divorced. Perhaps one of our parents passed away, and so that was our experience. Perhaps we had parents that were together in the home, but there was constant arguing or fighting. Perhaps there was physical abuse or emotional abuse. We need to really sit down with ourselves and be open to start investigating what are our experiential data in our unconscious mind around relationships. I guarantee you, as you begin this process of exploration into your own unconscious programming, you will begin to see correlations. I will speak to my own experience. My parents had certain patterns and habits of when they were happy or when they were fighting. And as I started to do this very same process that I'm describing to you guys, I started to notice that in my own romantic relationships, I was copying a lot of that behavior, and it was not successful behavior. So one may ask the question, if it's not successful, why do I do it? Well, that's what we're here to discover and to correct. Because yes, consciously, and this is the big aha moment for a lot of people, consciously, it doesn't make sense. Consciously, you would say, no, I don't want to do that. Consciously, you would say, I want to stop behaving in that manner. And guess what happens? Your unconscious mind kicks in. You have emotional traumas stored in your body. You have, experiential data on this is how I need to behave, perform. You have habits and strategies that trigger and start running in certain circumstances. And it's just like you have a reflex reaction. People call it the knee-jerk reaction. When our unconscious mind kicks in, it will override the conscious mind, and you will just act as if you are, in a trance, because that's exactly the way everything is wired to perform. Now, you're never going to override this factor that the unconscious mind automatically kicks in. But what's beautiful is there are ways to find out what's in the unconscious programming, bring it to the surface, to the conscious mind, make adjustments, corrections, deletions, and revise those patterns, strategies, and habits, and then put it right back into the unconscious mind. It would be unrealistic and foolish to think, I'm going to try to be conscious all the time. It's just impossible. So understand the process, know that it's a beautiful way that our brains are wired, and then play with the rules that we're given, right? So that's what we're doing today, is investigating, understanding. So spend some time considering, what is your history around relationships? Start writing out some things. When it comes to automatic writing, again, just start writing. Let it flow out. Ask these questions. I'm gonna list some questions that I think are really important. What do I want in a romantic relationship? What is important to me in a romantic relationship? What do I value in a romantic relationship? Those are some great questions. And then you can move into the follow-up to those questions. Am I currently receiving these things, these values, these things that I desire in a relationship? And if the answer is no, which I presuppose is probably there, probably very many people don't get, because things are in the way, right? Our baggage, our limiting beliefs. So then the next question is, how will I know that I'm receiving those things in this relationship? So after you finish those exercises, start writing about how, in the areas that you're not receiving, reflect on your past experiences in either your own romantic relationships that have failed, or the ones you currently are in, or reflect on other people's relationships, like your parents when you were a little child, your grandparents. Reflect on friends and their parents, right? So when you were, somewhere between 0 and 15 years of age, and you would go over to people's homes, or you would go to school, or you would go to church, all of those other people outside of your immediate household, what are their relationships like? Now, if you had siblings, this is a key thing that I think is really cool. If you have siblings, it is highly unlikely that they're going to pick up on exactly the same unconscious programs that you did. It's all experiential, and it's all unique to you. So in an example where you could have 3 different kids in a home, all 3 are going to pretty much develop different patterns, habits, and strategies based on their age, based on what was going on in that environment at that moment. I mean, you could just imagine that the first child born into a family, mother and father are of a certain age, a certain financial status, a certain experiential status, right? They're still growing. Your parents are still growing and evolving and developing too, right? And so then fast forward, 3, 4, 5 years, and the second child is born. Well, mom and dad are older. They might have a different financial status. Doesn't matter if it's up or down, right? It's just a different position in life. It is rare that for each child born, everything is exactly the same in the household. So you could look at your siblings and kind of see what's going on there, but that's not always a great indicator on you and your own personal habit strategies, patterns in your unconscious mind. But it is a really good reflection to kind of start looking around. So in your unconscious writing now, ask the question, where else did I witness these types of things happening. And finally, as you do your writing, ask yourself the question, what is holding me back from getting what I want? So you kind of revisit what you first started writing, which is, what am I looking for in a relationship? What am I valuing in a relationship? And what am I not getting in this relationship? So now we go to the question of, what is standing in my way? Now, this is a big question. This is going to take some time for you to unravel. But if you trust this process and you allow it to unfold, I think you'll find the answer comes forward. Now, in this process, there is something that we like to call trusting the process as well as trusting your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind has all of the information. It's there. We just have to trust its ability to bring that information forward. It's kind of a quiet voice sometimes in your head. It's that thought that you just know, but sometimes have trouble trusting. So we want to do a little experiment, and we basically want to get ourselves calm, centered, and grounded. So we're going to move into a grounding exercise here in just a minute. And I would like for you, as you do this automatic writing and as we move forward in these other videos, to use this grounding process to get your body calm, centered, and grounded before we really do any of these exercises. I may not record it each time, so revisit this video and listen to this section just for the purpose of grounding. So why do we do grounding? It calms us. It centers our breathing. It allows our nervous system to re-regulate to the new condition. Oftentimes, we're in a hurry all the time, so we're going to be in a more high beta state. So the grounding allows us to just return back to an alpha resting brainwave state, low alpha, getting into that theta zone, which is really important. You know, there is something called a critical faculty. Now, this is kind of a veil, a curtain, or a wall, if you will, that blocks information from the conscious to the unconscious mind. And for us to break through that critical faculty, we have to allow our brainwave states to drop into theta. Theta is where that critical faculty thins or parts, and we're able to get into the unconscious mind, or information from the unconscious mind can come forward into the conscious mind. So grounding is very important, very effective at getting ourselves in a position to make this practice much more effective. So what we're going to do right now is a grounding exercise. And after the grounding exercise is complete, now I'm assuming that you have already completed the automatic writing exercise up to this point. The items we talked about, you've written those questions and you've developed answers to those using the automatic writing process while you've been in a Hakalau state. And we're now to the question of, what is standing in my way? What is the root of my problem? The root with which, when removed, all of the other information will go away. Now, we're going to do the grounding, and at the end of the grounding, I'm going to ask the question, what is the root of this problem, with which, when removed, all of my other problems will go away? And I want you to just let that thought resonate in your mind, right? Just kind of loop that thought. Just say it over and over, quietly, calmly in your mind. And allow whatever thoughts come forward. And remember those thoughts. And as those thoughts come forward, calmly write down what's coming to your mind. Just stay in that calm, centered, grounded, trance-like state and just kind of write. Don't judge. Please do not judge. Just allow whatever comes forward. Even if it's something so off the wall that I can't even think of an example, like, oh, the root of my problem is a blue spotted yellow stuffed animal elephant. Who knows? Maybe that is the root of your problem. Maybe some aunt gave you that stuffed animal and you connected that stuffed animal with relationship problems because your aunt had relationship problems. I know it sounds crazy, But our unconscious mind at that very young age makes a lot of neurological connections to different sequences of events, and they tie together. So anyway, don't think it's crazy or off the wall. Just write it down, right? And we'll work through the process. So let's allow ourselves to get into a grounding position, which is essentially fully seated, calm, relaxed, in a safe place. No worries about what's going on around you. Hands just lightly placed on your knees. And we're going to take some deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Breathe in and out. We're going to slow it down a little bit. In through the nose and out. And one more. In through the nose and out. Now, with your eyes remaining closed and your breathing resumed to normal, I want you to envision with your mind's eye, using your imagination, see some energetic cords like roots on a tree growing from the bottom of your feet down into the earth below you, wherever you're sitting, and allow your unconscious mind to grow these roots as deep as necessary to fully ground you, to bring on the calm, centered, grounded feelings. And as these roots continue to grow deep down into the ground, these energetic cords, understand that the energy that's inside of you that's no longer serving you can pass down these cords if you instruct that energy to do so. So now, with your unconscious mind, just ask your unconscious mind quietly inside your head, just say to yourself, unconscious mind, I give you permission to release all of the negative energy that's inside of me that's no longer serving me, and allow this energy now to just pass down through your legs, through your feet, and down these energetic cords into the earth below you, knowing and trusting that the earth is the perfect place to take on this extra energy, to purify it and take it back to source. And now allow your unconscious mind to receive the energy from the earth, calm, centered, grounded energy. And we're going to allow this energy to flow back up through these energetic connections to fill up your feet, your ankles, your shins and calves, your knees, your thighs, your hips. And we're going to lock it in at this base chakra, this root center of your body, right at your pelvic floor. And now I would like for you to imagine in your mind's eye a source of white light above your head. And this white light is going to pass healing energy down through your body, starting at your head, filling your entire head, your shoulders, your arms, all the way out to your fingertips, your upper chest, your back, your lower back, your torso, all the way down to your hips. And allow these two energies now, the energy from source, energy from the earth, to connect at your root chakra, your pelvic center. And instruct your unconscious mind to allow this sensation, these feelings, to just continue throughout the rest of this day, and to allow your unconscious mind to make a mental impression of what this feels like, so that you can easily and effortlessly bring this back to your remembrance and to your presence whenever you desire. And now, as you remain with your eyes closed and your breathing normal, ask your unconscious mind, what is the root of all of these things that I am experiencing in relationships, which the root would be removed, all of these other problems will go away. Trusting your unconscious mind to have the right answer, allow this information now to just come forward. Whatever is perfect. What is the root of my problem, with which, when removed, will allow for the easy and effortless removal of all of these other problems or situations in my life? It could be unworthiness, it could be unlovingness, it could be some guilt or shame. Whatever this problem is, just think about it and allow your unconscious mind to bring it forward. And allow your unconscious mind to instruct your conscious mind of what this problem is so that you can write it down and remember. Now we're going to stay in this calm, centered, and grounded condition for just a little bit longer while you ponder this question. What is the root? Making a mental note of how this feels so that you can return to this anytime you desire. We'll now end this process by taking 3 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. How did that feel? I know I feel very calm, centered, and grounded right now. I even got a little bit of a smile as I imagined all of you all watching getting some amazing information. Some of you might be surprised at what you write or what came forward for you. Some of you might be like, oh, that makes perfect sense. So now tomorrow we're going to do the next video. And I want you to spend some time the rest of today going over all of this information. Just spending time. There's something interesting about the unconscious mind. Information, once you start asking the question, information just kind of starts coming out. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like you crack the door a little bit, because for all of the time before, what you've been doing without even realizing it is just kind of telling your unconscious mind, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to think about it, and you just kind of stuff that information down. But once you start asking these questions, that door to your unconscious mind cracks open just a little bit, and consequently, information will start to come out. So, really excited for you guys today. Great job today on working through all of this really great information. Remember, you're doing this for you. You're here for a specific reason. So give yourself the honor and the worthiness due you of giving this 100%. Just go all in and see just the wonderful beauties that happen on the other side. All right, goodbye for now. We'll see you on the next video.